I'm Reza Colo. This is part 2 of our 1841 parallel time discussion, episode 1234. I really like how Flora, like we said, goes to bat for Gabriel. Christopher Pennock being locked in the tower, and I love how we literally have uh, Keith Prentice's character Morgan coming up with the flask and giving it to him.
It's terrific. I mean, all of the good evening, Mrs. Cleaver kind of Eddie Haskell nonsense that Gabriel's up to is some of the funniest stuff they've done. No, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to do anything to you. When are they going to learn not to trust this man? I know he's Keith Prentice and everybody loves him. I'll love him, but he's going to kill us. I mean, basically, once you're in that tower room.
Well, Keith Prentice himself, he says about he doesn't trust Gabriel. That Morgan doesn't trust Gabriel, and I love how everything they put this to an actual vote to let Gabriel out of the room. I'm thinking, are they crazy?
As if there's going to be any other, judgment handed down. This is.
Let's get the vote together on. Hey, do we really want to set a psychotic killer free? No, but
probably not. Probably not.
I mean, this is like voting to let Michael Myers in or out of Smith's Grove. Pretty much.
Exactly.
And so everybody, I love how everybody unanimously finally agrees on something and they all vote no. It's like you are voted off the island. You are voted to stay in the tower room, Gabriel. And it's really cool. Keith Prentice, though, he's not, he's sort of just going through the motions here a bit. But I love how he keeps his character interesting by asking questions about Gabriel, about probing his mother, to the point of, hey, they know they can't trust Gabriel. And I think between Morgan and Julia, they drive that nail home in this episode. They both do. Grayson Hall and Keith Prentice do a great job.
They do. And we have, I believe, 11 more episodes left. So after the next one is the final 10 countdown.
I know. This has been fun to do by episode. And I really love how they end this. We get Grayson Hall. She's going up to the I'm going to deliver Gabriel his food. I'm like, yeah, this is going to end well.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that scene in one of the Dirty Harry movies where the thugs want a car. I'm like, yes, like how about a hearse? And you see Dirty Harry drive the car through the building or something. But with this, it's like let's take Gabriel his food. Yeah, this isn't gonna end well. And we find here's Morgan. You in there, Gabriel? Have you seen? Like, are you really asking your brother who you don't trust if he's seen Julia? And then we don't get the door open, which is a nice little build again coming from Curtis to hook us back. Here's Julia on the floor. She looks dead as a door now.
She dies.
She's not.
No,
but it's still a great build for the next episode.
It is. I mean, Grayson Hall's tougher to take down than Michael Myers. She just come right back and reach for those cigarettes.
I think what Sam Hall wrote, you lay unconscious on the floor, dead, with a question mark. And when they cut, secretly Grayson sat up like Michael Myers and just looked over at Sam.
Sure. Nancy Barrett, was that the boogeyman? Yes, my dear, I believe it was.
I believe it. That again, really great job by Nancy Barrett as well. I feel I'm like leaving her out, and I'm not meaning to, but I really Melanie,
she'll have her day.
Yeah, Melanie does. She does a really great job playing Melanie because they've kept this story going through. Who's her dad? Who's her mom? who's her family, and they've done a really great job of using many characters, including. And I love how throughout this entire arc they've kept Justin involved, even though he's written off the show.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, it's a very, very clever move on their part, I think.
Yeah, it is. I think the writers did a hell of a job making sure, hey, if somebody's not in an episode or somebody's written off, we're going to keep them mentioned because there's much part of this story still, even though they're not here. David Selby's Quentin Collins is mentioned in this episode as well. He's in the village. No, not that village. The village of the village of Collins, of course. But not in Point Marion or Mary Port Marion. Sorry, but really, really great episode. I love how the characters interact with each other. 41, and I love how we get a mention of Daphne in this episode. She's not dead yet. She's very much ill. She is dying. And we also get a mention of Bramwell being by her side, which is something we saw in a prior episode. Again, great job by the writers. Is there anything you want to add about 1841?
I'm looking forward in a very kind of sad way to the to what's to come. That we are kind of we are giving the Dark Shadows series its really its last hurrah, and that's always a cause to pay attention.
We're going to do something a little fun at the end of the final episode, and I want you to think about this. This is a ways off though because we still got 11 episodes to go.
Okay.
What would you have done? Like, let's say you have a time machine. You can go back and talk to Dan Curtis. What would you have done to somehow either continue the series or bring it back?
It's a very dangerous question, Jewel. I would tell him that he needs to maybe he needs to consider I think the I have to be very politic about what I'm going to say. I would ask him what his intentions towards this franchise are.
Yeah.
And if he sees it as something that was a fun ride, flash in the pan, and now it's time to move on, I would be there to kind of tell him that the future had other plans, and that he's in a position to do a lot of good if he will let that happen.
I think, in fairness to Dan too, keep in mind the word franchise for franchises isn't really there.
Not the same thing,
right?
Yeah.
It's not really there yet. Really, we're not going to get franchise discussions until post like Jaws, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Halloween.
Jewel, yes, and Tarzan, Sherlock Holmes, everything Hammer had done with Frankenstein and Dracula, and then finally Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes, which was huge.
Yeah.
And those are my those create my responses to that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing too. Like, maybe my question too would be, did Dan Curtis see Dark Shadows as a franchise?
I don't think he did. I think, yeah, or I think my biggest question would be, so Dan, what did you think was going to happen when you were making House of Dark Shadows to all of these beloved characters? What did you think was going to happen for what you were doing here? That I think is literally, and I've talked about this before, is the $1 million question.
Yeah. Do you think he's he's interested in more doing a movie franchise by that point of Dark Shadows?
No, I don't, because someone who's interested in a movie franchise doesn't kill off, their main character and portray their main character who has become beloved to the country as a hero as a villain. You just as uncompromising and hardcore and so on and so forth as that is, I got a news flash. This is not an uncompromising and hardcore franchise. It's not. And one of the things I think people really need to kumbaya about is the fact that in many ways this was a little bit of a kid's franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't have the mantra, I ran home from school all the time, and not concede that there was a tremendous kid audience for this. And not that doing something, as Star Wars shows us, just because you do something that is maybe for kids doesn't mean that it has to be childish. But know your audience. And I feel very arrogant saying that about the people involved, because I mean, they've forgotten more about Dark Shadows than I'll ever know. But at the same time, yeah, so this turned into a whole other thing than your question. But I would say, Mr. Curtis, you have one last chance to give everyone involved, including yourself, a new pool and a substantial chunk taken off their mortgage every 2 or 3 years, if you will just stick with it in movie theaters.
Yeah, I think that, look, in fairness to them, it's easy for us to sit back here years later and look at that, but
Jewel, I will give you a different way to look at it, because my least favorite phrase in the English language is "to be fair." I can't. Whenever I hear "to be fair," I know I'm gonna get the royal red one. I just do. So let us not be fair, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Just hear me out. Hear me out. If you sit back and think, well, perhaps the whole, Trade Federation sequence was a bit too dry for the Star Wars series, or something like that. Yeah, that's being Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
I don't think it is rocket surgery to say, hey, you have this very popular continuing saga with characters that are really working their way into the zeitgeist. And you get a movie, maybe don't kill them. Maybe do what is successful on the show. I don't think that's Monday morning quarterback. I think that is pretty straightforward wisdom. And I've been working on a theory for a long time that this is just a what if, okay? And it's the end of a late 1841 episode. No one's asleep. No one's listening right now, Jewel. We're safe. They've all gone home. Maybe we can kind of talk. We've turned out the lights on the shop, and we can talk honestly. And if someone is here, you are my favorite person on the planet. I really mean it. I do. But I have very strange standards for them. I want you to imagine that you're a TV executive, and that maybe you're not a noted Rod Serling in your spare time. Okay, you're not even Gene Roddenberry in terms of being a writer, nor do you claim to be. And you have a very good idea about putting a certain daytime sport on television, and thus you get put in charge of daytime programming. Okay, and you're kind of a Don Draper type, the John Hamm character on Mad Men that I always kind of imagine Mr. Curtis sort of being a tough guy version of, and that's the era. And you have a dream, and you tell it to Art Wallace. You hire a very good writer, and he turns it into a series, and he writes your first few months, and it has a lot of integrity, and it's very good. And you're very good at emergency thinking. You're very good at taking risk. You are not risk averse. And so when you're told you have 13 weeks and then you're going to get the axe, you say, let's bring in an effing vampire.
Yeah.
Because you listen to your kids, and Curtis kids, no dummies, and you are not risk averse. You will do it. You will take it on. And that's his great power. So the show's a hit, and suddenly you begin to rethink your career. That maybe you need to be the creator, rather than just sort of telling creative people what to do. Maybe you should directly be the creative person in charge. So you begin working towards that. And what should happen? But you begin to see things like Rosemary's Baby as a horror art film. And suddenly you think, my God, I could become a horror auteur. And then this thing called Dark Shadows is sort of tying you down, because you have to tend to this thing every single day. Those are a lot of plates to keep spinning. So now you have a choice. You either stay with Dark Shadows and keep it on the air and try and direct when you can, but that's probably, the Dark Shadows movies were kind of murder to do, even for someone with Dan Curtis's energy. Or you walk away from the show and you put it in the hands of somebody you trust. And there are two fates that many people in show business want to avoid. I'm not saying this happened, okay?
Right.
It's just me kind of retrofitting a what if. There are two fates. Fate number one, Jewel, the second worst fate is that you give it to someone incompetent and they trash your baby.
Yeah.
Do you know what the worst fate is? That's the second worst. You know what the worst fate is?
That you give it to somebody who is competent and it doesn't succeed.
No, that's the second to worst.
That's the second worst.
Yeah, guess what the first worst thing that could happen is?
Cancellation?
No, that you give it to someone and it's a much bigger success than you yourself did. So between those two things, you have a third alternative, and that is a forced implosion. It is where, you make a series of very bold decisions that build up your cojones as an artist. But you also guarantee that nobody's going to ruin Dark Shadows, and nobody is going to make it better than you. I'm not saying this happened. I am saying that I have known people in the arts who would rather do something like that than see someone else come along and make their thing more successful than they could have made it. And so I would hate for that to be the case.
Yeah.
This has gone into some very weird territory. Because I personally, no, I don't believe it's true.
Right.
But if it were true, it would be very sad. It would make a lot of the pieces of the puzzle fit.
Yeah.
But I suspect that, was it Jeff Thompson? Would probably have 1,000,001 reasons to take me to the factual woodshed and explain to me exactly why this didn't happen. And I hope that's very much the case. But it'd be a hell of a story.
Yeah. You and I have talked about bold decisions about Dark Shadows. The Leviathan arc is the biggest, boldest concept they're going to attempt. I mean, it's a big concept.
It is a big concept. It is one of my smoking guns.
No.
Also, because although it's a big concept, if you look at any of the Leviathan stuff on paper, okay, look at it on paper, and ask yourself, coming off of the roaring success of 1897, is this the move that you would take this series in? Not that you, Jules Sane, would not want to see,
Right.
but if your job is to keep this franchise on the air, is that the thing that you would do? And no, I don't think it is, quite honestly.
As much as I like the Leviathan arc now, I probably wouldn't. Because here's the thing, you have a lot of other areas you could explore. Keep in mind, you just went down the 1897 rabbit hole with many unanswered plots left open.
Yes.
And as much as I don't think this would have been hot shotting to bring Count Andreas Patofe into present time in a new body.
No, audiences would have been jubilant. I mean, hell, if you had figured out a way to bring Magda back,
right,
the audience would have been thrilled. Or if you had just, God help us, stayed in 1897.
I think that Quentin being all these places, the reason he's in other places and he finally makes his way to Collinsport, he's been tracking a man down that he believes has a fake hand, similar to 1897 Ben Gibbons. So he thinks that man's Patofe, and he's not necessarily wrong.
I think it's a great idea. And they might have said, you know what, we're sick of 1897. We want to get back to our roots. And yeah, okay, I get it. If that's the reasoning, I totally get it. It's a huge, this is the thing, is that if you keep doing more of the same, you get accused of cannibalizing yourself. If you turn your back on what is successful, that's a dumb move also. I don't envy anyone involved in having to make this decision.
Another path they could have went down, again, I'm a huge fan of. You could have went the cat people route. There's werewolves. You have somebody come to Collinsport. They're flirting with and hitting on Chris Jennings, and they say to him, "You're a werewolf," and he steps back like, "Wait, how do you know that? What do you mean?" And then she smiles, and as she leans in, you see these yellow eyes come across this woman's face. You think, is she a werewolf? No, she's a cat person. She's one of the cat people. They know about the werewolves. You could have went that route. Yeah.
So would you have had the truth finally revealed about this subsection of society?
Yeah, in a sense, I think.
So you would have had the truth about cats and dogs?
In a sense, yes.
I would have been happy to see that. That's a really cool idea.
But here's the thing, too. It's a story you could have had Barnabas at the center of as well, because Chris keeps telling, hey, this woman seems to know everything about the werewolves. Could you explain that to me? How would she know this? She keeps hinting that she knows. And Barnabas is a bit of a doubting Thomas, like, wait, that can't be. And then he finds out, too, as well, there's a society of cat people. Again, it's something you could have played with.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm not trying to sit here and play Monday morning quarterback.
Why not?
There was a lot of ideas on the table for Dark Shadows.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get in trouble for doing it. I encourage it.
I should. I'm literally later this year. I'll be bringing the character back I just killed off. So
Really?
I'm bringing back Angela Fontaine, my serial killer,
Oh, all right.
for the Sweetest Angel for the Ashes of Hell. Out of the Ashes of Hell.
How is the fiction writing coming?
It's coming well for Night Mover. It's coming really good. For later on, to give a little bit of a sneak for Sweetest Angel 4, by the end of the third one, she was shot. So you're at the hospital. It's going to start off at the hospital, and you see this man in a suit yelling at a doctor saying, "You do everything to save that woman's life, because we are going to try her for murder. She fooled this entire country." And who they're talking about is Angela Fontaine. They tied together all her murders she ever did, because they found her with the army knife in hand that was her dad's. Everything's finally revealed by the beginning of the newest story, that she was this cold-blooded killer, that she was this murderer. Well, they do save her, but something happens that they also forget about her. I won't reveal what.
Is it like a memory wipe thing, or what do you mean they forget about?
Okay.
You have to answer for this, Jewel.
Okay, the first part of the story takes place in Los Angeles. So after they save her, she falls into a coma from being shot all those times, and they don't know. They have her handcuffed to the bed, so in case she does wake up. And we've all heard that California is going to fall into the ocean because of a massive earthquake. Well, a massive earthquake happens.
Oh.
And it separates California from the United States.
Okay.
And they decide to get everybody off the island that is California. Well, they sort of forget about Angela being in this hospital comatose state, and they just leave her there.
Okay.
And because, again, an earthquake is more, disastrous than a serial killer.
Okay.
So, and the cop that was watching her just leaves it. This figures, you know what? Fuck it, and leaves the handcuff key.
Okay.
And she wakes up. She pulls out her own catheter after uncuffing herself, and she looks at her toes and she can't feel them. She can't move her because, again, she's been in this coma. She's been shot 6 times. She starts slowly moving her toes, moving her legs. She starts working her energy back. She's very weak. And finally, when she gets to her feet, she's looking around. She doesn't see anybody. Like, no one's at the hospital. She doesn't know what happened. Again, this all takes place 10 years later after the events of the third one. So that's where I'll leave that with you.
Well, all right. Gosh, that's incredibly ambitious. Is it fun to do?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do when you have a story that you're. Again, I was very hesitant to want to write the Sweetest Angel 4 because I was very happy with the first 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I really want to do, when I get done with with Night Mover and the Desert Rose Killer, I really wanted to do something. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I kept getting Angela's face in my mind. I'm thinking, do I really want to do another Sweetest Angel? And I'm thinking, you know what? Why not?
What of your pieces, what's gotten the best response?
The Sweetest Angel.
Okay.
It's gotten each
why
story.
Why do you think that is?
I think simply because of how the character was created in the story in itself. Here's the story starts off this little girl who's sitting in this ball field, which is a real, again, she's from fictionally Uniontown, PA, my hometown.
Okay.
But I used real locations in each story. The first one being in Uniontown, PA, the second one being in New Orleans, the third one being in California.
Okay.
I always use real locations in the Sweetest Angel to make it feel real. Now, my biggest issue with this fourth one is obviously the earthquake. That's fake as shit. But other than that, if I can get people to get past that part of it, I think the rest of it's pretty good. Because she gets back to the United States, but she doesn't look She doesn't have her blonde hair. She dyes it brown. She gets these fake contacts put in. She puts them in herself because there's nobody in California anymore. She's by herself.
Yeah.
She finds a boat. She finds some gasoline, and she figures, you know what? I'm going to go back to the United States after she realizes she's stranded. And she gets there, and no one knows who this strange new woman is where she goes. She goes to a very big city.
Okay.
So it isn't New York, but she goes to a big city. And actually, she goes to Texas. She goes to Dallas. No one knows who this new woman is, like coming into town. And she introduces herself as a completely different name. She doesn't go, I'm Angela Fontaine. That would be stupid. So she starts getting buddy with a lot of these people. And what she's trying to do is find the people who saved her life so she can murder them, but not make it look like the sweetest thing, like Angela did it. Make it look like accidental or something. She's going to murder people, basically. She's going to go back to killing, obviously. So she's a murderer.
When will this be done?
Probably later this year, probably by the fall.
Okay.
I'll have it up. I'm gonna start writing it after I end the Desert Rose Killer, which that won't be a while because I'm doing Night Mover. So.
Okay.
Vampire story.
It sounds terrific.
Thank you. I'll find out how terrific. But it's a lot of fun. That's the thing too. Like I want to have fun with when I'm writing. Like I have it. Like there's going to be a part in Night Mover where there's the picture of Calypso you see is a portrait. The picture that I chose. I chose that for a reason because in the story, a soldier in World War I paints her portrait. Paints her.
Okay.
She's wearing the red dress that she's in, and it's all done by candlelight. And it's a soldier's life who she saved from. So,
got it.
So that's not going to come till later, though. I'm going to do I'm writing chapter 4, which is going to end up in the cemetery. And she's going to save Kenny Larson's life. These grave robbers try to kill private investigator Kenny Larson because he's trying to stop a young boy from grave robbing, and they're all armed. And he realizes he's outnumbered. Well, Calypso she's passing by and she hears this, and she goes completely invisible, and she ends up killing the teenagers who are going to kill Kenny Larson. He doesn't see who's doing this. He just sees it. He just sees these people dying. And him and his partner at the time, his former partner Oscar Neptune, who's a cop. Kenny was a cop. He left to be a private investigator. He tells him in the next chapter after this one, the vampire saved my life. And he's like, well, who is it? I didn't see who it was. I just saw an invisible force killing teenagers.
Cool.
So
cool. Well, I look forward to it.
Thank you. What's that? I'm sorry.
I said I do.
I know I'm not like a great writer, and my friend goes, "You're a great writer." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm just a writer."
You just write, and you let other people decide whether or not you're great or not, and just the important thing is you can't care about their opinion more than your own.
I just like to have fun when I'm doing it. So, doing the writing. Really great discussion about 1897. I love the theories too that we talked about for Dark Shadows, what they could have done to continue it.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah. So let's see. Today's Sunday. Monday I have Friday the 13th. Tuesday we're doing the final Prisoner episode. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you do 3 episodes of 18.
Whatever you like. Whatever you like.
Oh my gosh. Patrick, sir, it has been an honor to do 2 parts of this with you. Thank you so much.
It always is. And off stage, I will give you a suggestion for something we might want to look at in the future.
Okay, let me stop recording.
Okay.